to be sharing with you and to talk a bit about dance. It's obviously a subject we're very passionate about. So we're going to first talk to you a bit about the kinds of programs we run and deliver and some of the principles behind those programs. At Canada's National Ballet School, we have community dance programs that are designed to go in school and in after-school programming, but also programs for people of all ages, for seniors and for everyone in between. So we truly believe that everyone should have access to dance. And these are up on the slide now is the principles with which we design every program. And you'll see that the very top one is health, because especially in this case, physical literacy is a really important skill. It's important for every child, but particularly important when we think about the trajectory of a child through dance. Canada's National Ballet School is really proud to train Olympic caliber athletes, and all of that begins with physical literacy skills. So we are really keen on helping people develop not just the motivation to dance and move, but also the competencies that will help them succeed. The second point is just that we want to provide equal and accessible opportunities, or equitable and accessible opportunities, so that there are no barriers to participation, and we provide modifications for all peoples. And then we talk a bit about how creativity is a central tenet of dance, and that's something we always want to include in our programming. And of course, we're building positive relationships, both with teachers and students and with peers through movement. So we know that physical literacy is an important thing for every child, but we also know, and I think this is probably information that is not going to come as a surprise to you, that there are some challenges, particularly in engaging girls in meaningful physical activity. So we know that girls aged 12 to 17 are the least likely to meet their daily physical activity targets. We truly believe that dance is for everybody, boys, girls, and people of all ages, but we know also that girls tend to engage in dance, tend to enjoy it. And when it's built into a physical education curriculum, it could be an opportunity for them to engage or take a leadership role when they otherwise might not. We also know that while it's 12 to 17-year-old girls who are the lowest in terms of participation, the confidences that young women need to participate begin dropping off sooner. So even at ages 7 to 9, we start to see young women who are not choosing to initiate sporting activities or to get involved in new physical activities. So we think that meaningful, positive dance programming that's really based on physical literacy practices can help young women build that confidence and competence that will allow them to dance, but also to participate in any sporting activity. So I'll toss it over to Anne.
Okay, so we're going to look at a few of the overall benefits of participating in dance, especially for kids. So it can benefit physical health in terms of cardiovascular health, physical stamina, fundamental physical literacy skills like balance, strength, and coordination. But as well, it can really be a great motivator for children to be physically active for life. And with self-expression and creativity and multiple options for success, we're giving kids sort of different motivations for being physically active. Creative movement and dance learning can also be designed in many different ways to be integrated into other curricular learning and various curriculum plans. It can be done in big spaces and small spaces, indoors, outdoors. It can be modified and accessible for people with varying physical and cognitive abilities, and can also be taught in different cultural and language contexts. And also we were engaging kids equally and helping them reach physical activity recommendations in the classroom, at home, and outside of school. And we're really trying to support the development of the whole child. So while building physical health and physical literacy skills, we're also trying to foster expression and relationships. So we have sort of a holistic model where we're focusing on building fundamental movement skills, as well as artistic and creative exploration and development, while also including social, emotional, and cognitive learning all together throughout programs. And then just a little bit more about what is creative movement. Well, in any sport or any athletic pursuit, we always begin by learning fundamental skills, and in dance, that early learning and those fundamental skills are taught through creative movement. And one of the most important aspects of creative movement is that the dancer is using their own experience, their own knowledge, their own ability to initiate and to produce movement within a structure and a framework. So it can be very engaging and accessible, and offer them a chance to really explore both their physical potential and their creative potential at the same time, in a non-competitive way. And one of the most important things is that in creative movement, there is no right or wrong way to move. We're not trying to learn specific movements and specific technique. We're more focusing on movement exploration, expression, and connecting dancers to each other by using creativity. All right, so it's time to move a little bit together. So we're going to start with a creative activity called open, closed, cross, and we're going to ask all of you to move with us. And I know we're all in different spaces, so whatever space you have, we'll give you a few different options for how you can move. So I'm going to stand up and move a little bit back in my space. And you are welcome to do this activity seated or in whichever way it suits you best. So in this activity, we're going to explore 3 different movement shapes. We have our open shape, our closed shape, and our crossed shape. And I'll give you a few options for how we can represent these shapes. So we can take our feet and we can go open. Good. And then bring them together for closed. And cross one over the other for crossed. Good. So we have open, closed, and crossed. If you'd like to try it with your upper body, you can go open, touching the shoulders, crossed, closed. So we have open, closed, crossed. And the smallest version, I'll come a little bit closer. You can go open, closed, crossed. So you can pick whichever one is best for you today and best for you in your space. So we're going to start, and in this activity, usually we'd be with our class in a circle, and we would have already done a physical warm-up and moving into kind of our creative activity. So I'm going to call out open, closed, and crossed, and each time I call out one of those words, you can make the open, closed, or crossed shape. So we're just going to practice and explore the movements a little bit together. So I'll say open, closed, open, crossed, closed, open, crossed, closed. Good, let's try it in a different way. So I'm going to try it now with my shoulders. You can feel free to choose a different way to try open, close, cross, and I'll call out the same. So open, closed, crossed, closed, open, crossed, closed. Good stuff. Okay, so as we, with the class, we would generally do this for a little bit longer, maybe invite 1 or 2 participants to be the leader, to call out the shapes. And once our dancers are really quite comfortable with the 3 movements, we'd move on to building a phrase, an 8-beat movement phrase together using open, closed, and crossed positions. So again, as a group, we'd work together and we'd co-create a phrase, but I've prepared one for us to try together. So we'll first go open, then closed, then crossed, then open, then crossed, then open, then crossed, then closed. Good, and you'll notice as you're trying this, with the cross, there are 2 options. You can cross 1 foot or 1 arm in front of the other, or 1 foot or 1 arm in front of the other. And for today, we'll leave it open. You can choose which way you'd like to make your crisscross. So we'll try this phrase all together, and we'll start slowly and we'll build it up. And again, usually with this, I'd use a drum to keep a steady beat. I'm gonna clap my hands for today, but we'll start a little slower and we'll build it up. So finding our positions, we go open, closed, crossed, open, crossed, open, crossed, closed. Good. Let's take it a little bit faster, and I'm going to start adding in the beat. So I'll give you 4 in, and I'll say ready, set, here we go. So we have ready, set, here we go. Open, closed, crossed, open, crossed, open, crossed. We'll go a little bit faster. Here we go. Ready, set, here you go. Goes open, open, crossed, open, crossed. Nice, let's give it one more try and see if you can give it a try in a different way than before. I'm going to do it with my feet so I can clap, but feel free to explore a new way. Ready, set, here we go. Goes open, open, crossed, open, crossed, closed. Okay. Nice work. Thank you for moving with us. So the next step here would be to give dancers an opportunity to create their own movement phrase. So we'd divide the class up into smaller groups. And within this framework, we'd ask them each to create an 8-beat phrase using the open, closed, and crossed positions. And usually we'd start with the familiar position, so the open, closed, crossed with the feet, or whichever one we'd instructed before. And then once dancers had practiced and are comfortable, we'd invite them to share with others in the group. So usually we'd split the group in half and have one side of the room share while the other half has something to look for. So we'd co-create a few success criteria to really give them an idea of what to focus on while they're watching. So maybe they're looking at different choices for the open, closed, crossed positions, or how the dancers are moving together. 1 or 2 very basic ideas that they can focus on. And then after that, we'd encourage them to give each other feedback and keep working on their phrase and applying some more creativity. So in a moment, I'll show you a little example of what this activity looks like with actual kids.
And while Anne's just switching over to video there, I'll just remind you that the 3 circles in that Venn diagram were fundamental movement skills, artistic sense or creativity, and cognitive or social emotional skills. In this exercise, creating that phrase of 8, making sure it's 8 beats long, those 8 beats are consistent, they're able to translate them to different parts of the body and they understand the pattern. That's where we're linking potentially into the cognitive area. The idea of being able to manage those open closes and crosses is actually quite a challenge for some young people. So they are learning a physical skill. I often would do this activity before, say, introducing a grapevine. You probably know a grapevine step in dance goes open, cross, open, close, open, cross, open, close. So this is teaching them some of the sort of fundamental skills they need in order to accomplish that step, which we might teach them at a later date. And then with creativity, we're always giving children the chance to express their agency, to create something of their own. So as Anne mentioned, they would co-create the first version, and then they would get to create their own version, and that we find that really helps them engage in the activity. But I think we're ready to watch. This is a little video from the free NBS online dance resources that are within our learning management system. We'll talk more about that later, but you'll see some real kids giving it a try.
Begin this activity with the participants standing in a circle. Demonstrate 3 positions: open, standing with your feet shoulder length apart; closed, standing with your feet together; and cross, with either your right or left foot in front. Practice these 3 positions with the dancers until you feel they're familiar. Now demonstrate an 8-beat phrase using those 3 movements. For example, open, cross, open, close, open, cross, open, close. Ask the group to practice the sequence along with you and say the words aloud as you go. Open, close. Now show them what your sequence looks like written out on a piece of construction paper. Draw a circle to represent open, the letter C to represent close, and an X to represent the cross. Each symbol should count for 1 beat. Organize your participants into groups of 3 to 5 dancers and hand each of them a construction paper and a marker. Each group will design their own 8-count phrase and write the symbols on the card to match. For example, they could write closed, open, cross, closed, open, closed, closed, cross. Make sure you give your dancers ample time to design and cross, open, circling around the cross, open, close, cross, open, close, cross, open, close. During the creative time, visit each group and ask them to demonstrate their sequence. If a group is having challenges, give them some suggestions and support. If they're doing well, you can offer them further challenges by seeing if they can do their sequence without looking at their paper or without using their voice. If you're using recorded music, ensure that each group has a chance to do a rehearsal with the music before they present. Once you feel that everyone is ready, ask each group to present their dance. You can further develop this activity by asking them to repeat the same movement phrase using their arms, or using their arms and legs at the same time.
And you can see there, we actually we allowed them to add dab in. It's a frequent request. Can we dab? So that one was open, close, cross, and dab. Which is totally fine. I think we always want to make sure that the kids have license to add to the activity or add their own flavor. You'll also notice one of the groups wanted to add a spin. So you'll find you start with this framework and then you can let the kids explore within it and create and add new movements as well. So we're gonna, I think, move on now and try another kind of activity that we love to do in a dance class. And that is to do, oh, sorry, did you have more to say before we switch over there, Anne?
No, all of what you covered was in this slide.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So sometimes we also like to link our dances to certain learnings or outcomes. They could be cross-curricular, things that we know the students are learning in other aspects of their schooling, or it could be related to the health portions of a phys ed class. But we want to make sure that there are multiple ways that we can bring concepts into our dancing. So now we're going to try together a little bit of a cardiovascular dance. This is going to be a kind of a fast forward version. Normally I would take maybe 3 classes to work this through with a group of dancers. But today, since you're obviously very smart and clever students, we'll do the fast forward version. So once again, we're going to back up in the space, and you're welcome to do a seated version if that's more comfortable for you, or to join us standing. Remember, it's your creativity that we're looking for and you choosing to move your body your way as we do this. So I'm going to find my space. And the first thing we're going to do is feel or note the big organs that are part of our circulatory system. So if you place your hands on your heart, we're going to start with a little heartbeat. It goes like this. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. And then our lungs, if I was working with students, I would ask them what is the other organ, what does that do? So our lungs help us collect oxygen, gather oxygen. So let's do a movement that allows us to gather oxygen. So breathe in and bring your hands back, testing out your lungs. So back to your heart. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. And then the lungs, breathe in and breathe out. Try that one more time. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. My lungs, breathe in and then breathe out. So we have all sorts of different cells that have different jobs within our circulatory system. So I would normally ask, and I don't know, maybe I'll quiz Anne. Anne, do you know any of the cells that we find in our blood?
We have red blood cells.
Okay, so let's start there. Red blood cells. What do red blood cells do? They take the oxygen from our lungs and they travel them all the way through our body. And the shape of a red blood cell kind of looks like a basketball with all the air let out. So can you try this? Make that big, beautiful lung breath. And then let the air out of that shape. So you look a little bit like a deflated basketball. And that can be any way you think your basketball would deflate. That's going to be our red blood cell shape. Now, so let's try that. We do my heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. Deep breath from your lungs. And in. Do that one more time. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. Deep breath from your lungs. Now do the basketball deflate. Red blood cell. Great. Now our red blood cells have to travel from our heart through the arteries and the veins all the way to the little capillaries at the ends of our fingers and toes. So can you travel, and of course be aware of your space, can you travel through your space in your deflated blood cell shape? So you could go forwards, backwards, sideways, around. You choose how you move. You probably have to get smaller as you move into those capillaries. And when you arrive, I want you to decide how you donate your oxygen. So maybe you wave the oxygen through the cell walls, maybe you blow the oxygen through. You can decide for yourself how that oxygen moves into your muscles so that it can be used for your activity. Great, so let's try that whole thing from the heart, through the lungs, into red blood cells traveling, and then red blood cells giving their oxygen to the muscles. All right, so starting with feet wide, with hands on your heart. Ready, set, here we go. My heart, my heart, my heart. Deep breath from your lungs goes, let it out, and hands on your heart. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. Deep breath goes, let the air out, go. Red blood cell travels, go around the space. Good. And then get ready to send your oxygen. Send it away. Beautiful, very nice. Good. So we have two more cells that we want to dance. So one of them is the white blood cell. So we danced our red blood cell. And do you know what a white blood cell does?
A white blood cell helps to clean.
That's right. Yeah, they defend our body and they help to clean up the mess after the battle. Yeah, so they have two important jobs. So one, they're defenders, and two, they can help to tidy up. So let's start with the defenders, okay? And when we're doing this with kids, we're gonna make them especially aware that they have to know their space, respect their space and the space of their neighbors, but I want you to take your defense dance. Yeah, so we're going to do 8 sharp movements that show the white blood cells defending. And white blood cells come in very odd and different shapes. So you don't have to match anybody else, okay? Here we go. Ready, set, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. Now we have to clean up. So let's start by cleaning the windows. How would you clean the windows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do one more time. Defend. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then this time, let's dust the shelves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. So that's our defending and our cleaning. And the very last section, I know I'm moving really quickly. We would probably spend one class on each of these movements, but the very last section are platelets. So platelets are round cells, but when you're in the presence of it, when you have a cut, there's a protein release that makes the cells, these platelets go sticky. Yeah, so can you try that? Platelet. And then when a protein comes, you go sticky. Good, try that again. Platelet. And when the protein comes, you go sticky. And one more time, platelet. And sticky. And then the sticky platelets build a clot, so they connect to the objects around them to protect our body. Good, good. Let's try that one more time. So this is our last part of the cardiovascular dance. We have a platelet in the presence of a protein. A platelet in the presence of a protein. A platelet in the presence of a protein. It builds a clot. Beautiful. Okay, let's try our whole dance and I'll count it through with you. And then we'll also give it a try with a bit of music. All right, so we started with our feet wide apart, with our hands on our hearts, and we'll hear our heartbeat. Before we do that, just take a deep breath and let it out. And let your body feel energetic and ready to move. Ready? 5, 6, heartbeat goes. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. The lungs breathe in. Hands back to your heart, out. Once again, listen. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. Deep breath goes in. And then red blood cell. Travel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Give your oxygen. Give. 2, 3, 4. Ready. Right. White blood cells defend. Go. 1, 2, 3. Nice and sharp. 5, 6, 7. Clean. This is different. And 2, and 3. Get ready to defend. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Clean by dusting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Platelets. Go. Platelets in the presence of a protein. Again, platelets in the presence of a protein. Last time, platelets around and stick. And then finish by building your clot for 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. You guys are totally fab. All right, so I'm gonna get us set up here with some music. And I see a question here from Julie about age ranges. So Faye, if you don't mind switching over so that I can play music from my computer, if you don't mind helping with that, that would be great. And that's a great question. The open, close, cross activity, I've done with anywhere from ages about 5, 6, probably 6, until about 10. And the cardiovascular dance I've done with grades 3, 4, and 5. But I think a lot of them can be adapted depending on how how you choose to design the activity? That's a great question. We can talk more about that kind of stuff at the end with the questions as well. So I'm going to do a little music test here and see if you can hear me. So Anne, do you want to let me know if you can hear the music? Thumbs up? Okay. So let's try it with the music. All right, so find your starting spot with your feet under your hips, your hands generously at your heart, and your body lengthened and calm. And I'll join you. We'll dance it together. All right, here we go. Starting with your heart. Now your lungs. Do that one more time. My heart. Now breathe it in, red blood cell out. Growl. Keep traveling. Now give your oxygen away. Really reach it. Go ahead and maybe give it away again. Excellent. Now we're going to defend. White blood cells go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Clean. Defend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Clean. Now platelets go. Platelets. Protein. Platelets. In the presence of a protein. Last one. Platelets. In the presence of a protein. They build the clot. Stick. 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 Awesome. Good. I hope that music sounded okay. I know sometimes when we're dancing on Zoom or in a webinar, the music can be a bit of a challenge. But hopefully that worked for you. And really, you could do this with any material. We've danced the rock cycle, the life cycle of a frog. Cycles in science are really great activities to dance. And we love when the students themselves add their creativity. So if I was in a normal setting with students, I would definitely be asking them and maybe showing them pictures of the different cells and asking them, how would you make that shape? How can we do that together? What does this look like? I'd also be pointing out the different kinds of energy we have in our body. So when are we sharp and when are we lyrical? How does that feel different in our bodies? So that we're thinking from the perspective of what they're learning. So learning about some of the cells in our circulatory system and what physical qualities they're dancing, and that connects to the elements of dance: body, space, time, energy, and relationship, if you're in Ontario. And then we're also letting them explore their creativity and make suggestions. Sometimes, just like Anne did with the open, close, cross, we'll do that activity once as a class. We'll design a dance, and then we'll split them off into separate groups and say, now with that framework, 8 counts of 8, or 4 counts of 8 for this, 4 counts of 8 for that. I want you to design your own version where your group makes their own choices. So lots of flexibility about how this can be expanded, and it can really take up even 4 to 6 lessons. And anything to add about the cardio? And it's sticky here in Toronto, so I've got nice and warm. Anything to add further about that one?
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it all. Another thing that we could, just as we're getting the slideshow back up and running, touch on is sort of how we used the elements of dance in that cardiovascular dance. So I know Ashleigh did touch on that briefly.
Do you want
just
me
give me
to talk that through while you're working on the slide?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so like I mentioned, the elements of dance are body, which is just an awareness of our body parts, lots of that in that dance. Space is our ability to use the space provided to us, the general space, as well as our understanding of our personal space, our ability to sustain our personal space. It encompasses things like levels. So if our red blood cell gets lower and lower and smaller as we're traveling, that would be an example of students using levels within a dance. the elements of dance also include shape. So our deflated red blood cell is different from our unique shapes in our white blood cells, is different from our round, perfectly round shape or our spiky shapes with the platelets. So we're encouraging students to understand how they're using shape. And energies is one of the most fun parts of teaching students the elements of dance. So a good contrasting energy moment was that moment where we were being white blood cells, where I was defending, and that was a very strong, forceful, direct energy. And then the dusting, which was a little bit of an indirect, almost vibratory action. So we want to help students have a vocabulary for these kinds of activities. We want to teach them the elements of dance, not just because it might be in the curriculum, but because that's the vocabulary with which we can communicate about dance, and with which we can share and challenge each other to try new things. Can you make those energies even more obviously different? Can you make your sharps sharper and your lights lighter? So it really provides us with a vocabulary for communication and conversation with the dancers. I think we're all set here. Did we cover everything on this slide? Yeah. So, Anne, take it away.
Thank you. All right, so one other type of lesson or activity or unit we're going to look at is the artist study. And we'll show you an example of one of these. And the general goal of an artist study is to replicate sort of an artist in residence to allow dancers to sort of explore a dance form or an artist's work more deeply with them in person. And generally, these types of units would have a little bit more of a focus on choreography, but with a real goal of, again, building physical literacy by learning different movement vocabularies, building artistry, and learning different stylistic elements. So today we're going to look at Angela Gladou's artist study, and she is a powwow and hip hop artist who has created a piece of choreography that uses movement vocabulary from both powwow and hip hop dance combined, and she teaches a number of different steps and also stylistic elements that go with them, and then puts them together into a piece of choreography. So this is a type of project that would be able to be used over quite a little bit of time. And we're going to show you an example of one of the first movement videos where she teaches the basic step. And in this one, Angela will be teaching, and you can follow along in your own space. So I'll just get her up on the screen.
And for those of you who haven't heard Angela's name before, she's actually the dancer for Tribe Called Red, which is a really popular Indigenous group that fuses Indigenous music with hip hop, and similarly, Angela fuses her powwow. She's Cree. She fuses her powwow dancing with her hip hop dancing in this unit, which is really fun to follow along.
Here we go.
Pantekiwao, Angelina Sigason. Hello, how are all of you? My name is Angela, this is Brianna, and this is Shane. And we're gonna teach you some powwow basics. So the first thing we're gonna start with is called the basic step. So every time you hear the drum beat go, your foot wants to match that sound. So it's kind of like the floor is the drum and your foot is the drumstick, and you want your foot to always be on time. So what we're gonna do first, we're gonna step forward with our right foot, and then you're just gonna bring it back. So you're just gonna do a light tap, and then bring it back on each side. Tap, step, tap, step, tap, step, tap, step. So you don't wanna put all your weight on one foot, because it's gonna be so quick, you just do a quick tap and bring it back. You're gonna switch your feet from one foot to the other. So let's try that again, starting with the right foot. 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keep tapping. Good job. So keep it going. You want to practice this so it gets in your body. You don't have to think about it anymore. And also, we're going to speed this step up so it matches with the drum. So this is the basic step. Full speed without the bounce.
That's good. It's a little bit hard to follow along. The video is a little choppy, but I think we get a good idea of what those kinds of videos are like. And we want to make sure we leave lots of time for questions. So if you haven't been adding questions, please do. We would love to answer as many as we can. But for now, we'll pop back to the slides just to walk you through some of the resources we provide for free online. So we have an online, oh, sorry, before we do that, Anne, do you want to talk about choosing the right activity? We shouldn't skip over that.
Sure. So there are lots of different activities you can choose from. And basically, each one of them has slightly different outcomes as far as movement skills that are being developed and parallel skills that we're developing with movement. So one type of activity that you could choose as a creative activity, kind of like open, closed, crossed, where as the instructor or facilitator, you're presenting a creative idea and the participants are using their own creativity to build a short piece of movement themselves. So in a creative activity, the dancers would be doing a little bit more independent group work, and generally those creative activities would be accomplished in one class. You can also choose a cross-curricular activity where the idea is that we're learning about a cross-curricular concept, so a science concept, a math concept, a literacy concept, but we're learning about that through movement, and generally tied to a very close theme. So like the cardiovascular dance, we're exploring a subject in the curriculum, but we are learning that through movement and still building those physical literacy skills and being active throughout. And cross-curricular activities are a really great choice, especially if you're trying to add a little bit more physical activity into the day during regular classroom hours, but also can be a great way for anyone who might not be connected to dance, but might be really interested in frogs or in angles or in another topic. And then there's the option to learn choreography, where you could instruct the choreography yourself or use a video tool like Angela's to have an artist come into your classroom or your learning space. And with that one, we're really building an understanding of different movement vocabularies and different styles of dance and the process that goes into learning and creating choreography. And generally, in terms of age groups, the creative activities are really quite good for the younger students. If you're in primary, generally a one-off creative activity can work really, really well, as well as cross-curricular learning, which can be really, really great in more of the junior grades, and choreography, junior going into intermediate and senior.
Yeah, and one thing that's helpful too is that we always try and scaffold these activities. So I think one of the reasons that people are afraid of dance or feel like they can't dance is because they've had an experience where what dance is the teacher stands at the front, I follow them, and I desperately try to learn all the steps. But I think what's missing in that moment is building up those fundamental skills, like can you count a phrase of 8? Are the fundamental movements of hopping, running, leaping, jumping part of your skill set? So we want to always make sure that we're choosing an activity that provides a bit of challenge to our dancers, but one that's an achievable challenge for them, and also provides some diversity within it, so people with different kinds of physical abilities can find their own challenge within our activities. And choreography is really the next step after creative movement when they've sort of got those skills and are ready to learn something that includes all the elements at once. So they're including pattern, movement, and all sorts of skills at the same time. So Anne really accurately described some of the resources we have in our learning management system. These are all free. All you have to do is register, but there's no cost. There's a cross-curricular and choreography section that will have videos like the one we showed you of Angela, but also videos like that do things like what we did in the cardiovascular dance. We have an activity library that has those short 20-minute activities that could be put into a larger lesson, but also could be done separately as, I don't like to call them brain breaks, but as ways to activate people during class. And then a course, which is an introduction to creative movement, which will touch on some of the things we talked about today in greater detail and talk more about the elements of dance and how that language helps us deliver a dance class. So I think we have about 10 minutes left, which I think would be a great time to start answering any questions people have. So Faye, I don't know if you have questions that have been submitted.
Yes, we do. As a reminder, you can still submit your questions, and we'll now begin to answer some questions that we've received. So the first one is from Tanya, and her feedback for the cardiovascular dance. She loved the music. And can you please share what albums or resources it is from, and maybe kind of like suggest to educators where can they find those fun, engaging musics?
Yeah, that's great. Well, the music I played, I'll just tell you the title, and maybe we can type it into the chat box as well. But the musician is named Chris Cothray, and the album is Music for Modern Dance, and I just got it on iTunes. The music for contemporary and modern dance is often really helpful. It often has a little bit of a click track introduction, which can really help the kids anchor themselves. The other thing is on our resources, a number of, especially the cross-curricular lessons, we actually provide free downloadable music that matches the activity. So we've commissioned some musicians to create music for us so that we can share that with you, because we know what a challenge it can be to find appropriate music. So feel free to explore what we have on our learning management system, which is called Reach. But if you're trying to find things on Spotify, I would look up music for modern dance class or music for contemporary dance class. And do you have any other tips about music?
Yeah, sometimes we also just use handheld percussion. Something as simple as a drum or tambourine, if you have access to, can also be really, really useful for keeping the steady beat. And that way you can modify the tempo and the dynamics as you go. So that's another resource if you have a drum or rhythm sticks or any type of handheld percussion.
Yeah. You can also do some fun things with that and have the kids drum for themselves, which is really excellent learning for them too. That was a great question. Any other questions, Faye?
So I think James is asking about some of the links to the website. So maybe we'll include those links in our follow-up email so everybody can have them. And we move on to the next question. I personally really like this question, and it's from Josia. And the question is, do you have any resources of male instructors and any recommendations for encouraging some of the boys in the class to get involved? Because I think the challenge is that some of the boys are intimidated to get involved in dancing.
Yeah, that is a really great point. I think I often find that boys at first, especially if you tell them we're going to do dance, like there's a lot of moaning and groaning, but actually once you start the act of dancing, they tend to really enjoy it. Especially if it's fun and popular music and really engaging. So things like Angela's resources, which use popular hip hop tracks, I think that's a great way to get buy-in from male students. We don't have a lot of male teachers on our resources, which is a shame. It's something that we've been working on changing. I love in the one that we shared of Angela that Shane was there, and actually in the powwow movements, he shows the male style of the grass dance style rather than the sort of more upright style you might see in fancy shawl and jingle dress, which are female dances. But it's definitely something we need to work on in terms of the overall equity and inclusion that's represented on our resources. It's something that we have as a goal, so hopefully you'll be able to see more of that in the future. Really good question.
Awesome. And I think we received a similar question, and I guess the question in general is that regardless of the gender of the students, some students just feel naturally awkward moving their body or express themselves with body languages. And so do you mind offering some tips, kind of like get the teachers to start engaging them?
Sure. Well, I'll give one and then I'll toss it over to Anne, and she probably has her own bag of tricks too. I think having a lot of patience is important, because the last thing we want to do is put someone on the spot or force them to be creative. So I oftentimes will let people pass or stay in the background as long as they're not being disruptive for a couple of lessons before I call on them if they look uncomfortable. The other thing I might do is always give a default movement. So if we are going around the circle and everybody has to share their favorite sport through movement, I might say, if you're not ready to share your favorite sport, just stomp the syllables of your name. Or if you're not ready to create a movement that matches your name today, this is what you can do instead. So they're never too much on the spot. And then just gradually, step by step, like any skill, we want to walk them towards their participation slowly, and just respecting the fact that for some people this is new and challenging, and it might take some time. But Anne, do you have any tricks for those people who are a little bit movement adverse or shy?
Yeah, well, I guess just to echo what you said, like allowing them to sort of choose and self-select how they participate in the activity is really, really important. And sometimes it just is a matter of giving them a little bit of time to look and see what's going on. I find sometimes just looking for different motivators for different personalities. Sometimes if there's a game element, someone might be a little bit more interested in participating, or again, like a particular song that they might like. In the first few classes, I really like to take time to check in, especially if it's a group that I've never met before, just to find out interests, abilities, comfort levels, and try to incorporate some of those things in. So if I know that there's someone in the class who's, really interested in computers or robotics, maybe designing a lesson with that theme in mind, or if someone says they really like a certain song, building it in to give them just something that they can look forward to. And again, providing a lot of choice within a framework. So with open, closed, cross, I gave the opportunity to jump with your feet, but also the opportunity to just move your fingers. So if someone was a little less confident, this is just a starting point where they're participating and they're involved, and they can build up in a way that makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah, and they'll surprise you. I had a little young man once, I think he was in grade 2 in my class, and he did not want to dance. He was quite disruptive, and so one day we sat down and I said, what can we do? Like, is there music you like? And he said, you're making it too easy because you're talking. I said, what? He said, when we do the warm-up, it should be like Dance Dance Revolution, where I have to follow you, but you don't give me hints. It's too easy because you give me hints. Can we make it more like Dance Dance Revolution? I was like, well, yeah, of course. So sometimes there's some really easy adaptations if you talk to the individual student who's having a hard time, but it is a challenge, and just stick with it, and hopefully they'll come on side.
Awesome. And reading from the comments, Helen also shared a tip. So she said, if you tell the boys that dance improves their agility in sports, it can kind of like motivate them. So here's another angle. And next question is from James I believe, and he's asking about the NBS program and how it is working with the curriculum. And he's also curious to know if you've been working with Ministry of Education in Ontario to develop the curriculum, and maybe some information.
Sure.
Here.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So we, because we are a national organization, when we started building these resources, we had a look across all of the provincial curriculums. There are some provinces with great dance curriculums like Ontario, Manitoba, BC. There also are some provinces where dance is a little bit differently represented. I think in Newfoundland, it's maybe potentially more within a folk dance or a rhythm section of the phys ed curriculum. So each province is slightly different, and we tried to find the common elements between the different provinces to focus on those to start. And then additionally, one of our primary goals now is to make sure all of the resources are translated into French. And also Angela's resource, we're going to provide some materials in Cree as well. So we're really doing our best to reflect the landscape of Canadian dance. We need to do more work in this regard to have a more equitable lens on the kinds of content we create and share. But our starting place was looking across the country at those curriculum documents. And these resources are free because they're supported by the Public Health Agency of Canada. So we're really grateful to their support, and this has been a 5-year project supported by them. But I mean, the most important thing when you do go, if you do go and access the resources, is, I mean, if you'll probably get an email from Anne when you sign in saying welcome, and we want your feedback, your recommendations, more of this, less of this, change this up, because our only nightmare is if we create this and it's not useful. What we want to do is create things that are helpful and useful and that encourage people to give dance a try, especially those people who might feel a little nervous about it.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we have time for 2 more questions. So the second last question is actually from many attendees. So they're asking, what resources can you share with teachers to build meaningful programs for different grades? For example, K to 6 or 7 to 12. Would you be able to kind of direct them to the right spot?
Sure, and actually maybe Anne, do you want to quickly pull up the learning management system, and maybe we can just screen share what one of the activity library resources looks like. So in each of the resources, there'll be a title bar that will tell you the recommended grade level and some of the key dance outcomes that are included in that lesson. So for each resource, you'll have a short video that's probably 2 to 5 minutes, printable PDF lesson plan, and if there is music that we've commissioned, then you can also have the downloadable music. And the lesson plan should walk you step by step through the activity, as well as share some prompts that you can use with your class, some suggestions for how to adapt the material either up to make it more challenging or down if you have different learning abilities. Great, so this is the cross-curricular course. Do you want to go to the activity library actually, Anne? So this is what the platform looks like when you register. You'll be able to select to register for all of these or for one, depending on what you like. And you'll see here that the library is searchable. So you can search it by the part of the structure of the class. So is it a warm-up or a dance activity? You can search it by the element of dance that's most applicable. You can search by age level, and you can also search by group size, so small group or large group. And it will filter for you and suggest the activity that might be the most applicable. And then if we click on one of them, why don't we click on Sculpture Gallery, actually, right in the middle there. Great. You'll see that it opens up a page that will give you a lot more detail about the lesson, a video that you can watch, and then the downloadable printable PDF form. There's not as much content in the library as we would want yet. There's more to come. We've filmed more resources recently that are coming and will be available soon. And again, that's where I'll give a call to action. If there's something that you think you need that isn't there yet, let us know, because we're going to be constantly developing new material for this website.
Well, I really like the activity library. I think it's a great resource.
Thanks.
Are these
And free.
free? Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
everything.
I like that word. I think many people would appreciate that word actually.
And
Okay,
right now,
last question. Okay.
oh, just before
Sorry.
we do that, right now during COVID, we know that students can't create logins for platforms like this, so we've moved some content directly onto the NBS website. So if you're looking for things you can share with your students during remote learning times, check out our at-home portion of our website. There's resources there for kids. There's our upcoming Sharing Dance Day, which is a participatory event that's going to be on Friday with teachers from across the country sharing their unique dance stats.
Perfect. And our final question is a general one, but I think it'll be useful. And the question goes, any good advice for teachers who don't know where to begin with dance and don't have a background in dancing?
Yeah, definitely. Don't feel like you have to demonstrate dance in front of your students. The open close cross activity is a great example of something where you can facilitate it without dancing. We do encourage you to participate and jump along with them and let them create things and try it with them, of course, to make them feel engaged. But there are a lot of activities that don't require any dance demonstration. And that's a great place to start, both for you and your students. To be honest, you don't even have to call it dance right away. You could just have it as a movement activity to start, and then you can surprise them with the fact that it's dance later.
Perfect. I think that's it. That's everything. And Ashleigh, and then is there anything else you want to add?
No, Anne, over to you. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to let you all know we've put our contact information on the screen, and I'm sure that we'll follow up with the PowerPoint and some of our links, but definitely feel free to reach out to either of us if you're looking for specific resources for your program, if you have any questions about the presentation, or if there's anything you'd like to discuss in detail. We're always happy to connect with you, yeah, and hear from you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
And please join us on Friday, NBS Sharing Dance Day. It's a live broadcast on our website, YouTube, and Facebook. And we'd love to have as many people come in and dance along.
Perfect. Thank you again, Ashleigh, and then thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. And if you have any questions, like Ashleigh said, please feel free to send them an email or contact us at conference@phecanada.ca. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar and the PowerPoint, as well as some useful links. And on behalf of PHE Canada, our presenters and partners, Human Kinetics and Canada's National Ballet School, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Anne and Ashleigh.
Bye.
Bye.